prepare yourselves for the most low-tech teaching demonstration in the history of the internet. As I was thinking of preparing this, I was realizing that some students might not have a printer. I don't like to print things at home. And you might also not have a big enough screen to where you can keep things open in two windows. So I am going to assume that you can simply have the rules sheets up on a computer screen, and then you'll be working on with pencil and paper. So I'm going to mimic that in a second. Make sure you have your rule sheets open in a window. If you could print them, that would be really great, but let's assume you can't. So have the rules open on a computer window, and then pause this and write down the exercises from our handouts, right? So write down the exercises for the deductive proofs, and then join me over at my crayons and construction paper in a second. So I am simply going to assume that you have the rule sheets out. I will refer to them constantly in a second window on my computer, but I am hoping you are just using pencil and paper and working these together with me. Forgive how hideously ugly these videos will be. So meet me over at the drawing board. All right, I warned you. Here's our first example. Really low tech. And there's really not room for me to fit on this screen because I'll want to be putting notes over on the left-hand side. I will try to check in every once in a while in case you miss me. Here I am. Yay. See, no room for me. Sorry. Damn. All right. So these first four examples, A through D, are to get you used to the rules and how to justify each line in a proof. So this is an existing proof. The author has these two premises, and they are after this goal. So one thing to keep in mind is whenever you're looking at these things is notice that every line can only be justified by the lines above. So in a sense, you should ignore the lines below. Pretend that they don't even exist. So we are looking at these two premises, and the author used those two premises to derive B by itself. So now, for the first examples, let me walk you through it really slowly and point out the rule sheet so you can get used to seeing how this works. Now, the author says that in line 3, B is true because of the premises in lines 1 and 2. Now notice, we could say that they either got B from line 2 or from line 1. And so now we need to think of which way is legal. We cannot take B out of line 2 because when we take apart a conditional, we can only take out the right side. We have to prove the left side elsewhere in order to know that C is true. So right now, we do not know that B is true. And if you want to get really fancy and nerdy, notice. If I know that this sentence is true, so think of our truth tables. If I know that B conditional C is true, I don't know the value of B or C yet at all. Because notice, if B is false and C is false, that conditional is still true. Remember our conditions. A conditional is only false when ordered true then false. So this is a true case. So notice, I don't know that B is true in line 2. I have to find it elsewhere. So look at line 1. What do we see? Line 1 is an and. Do I have a rule that lets me take apart an and? Yes. I can take either side of an and because if an and sentence is true, both sides have to be true. An and is only true when both sides are true, so I know B is true. Do I have a rule that lets me do that? Yes. What did I do? Did I create an and or did I take one apart? I clearly took apart the and in line 1, so what did I use? I used the and elimination rule. And if I look at my rule sheet, what does it say? How many lines are required to justify that rule? Now, I'm going to do something corny for a second, and I'm going to put my sheets in front of the camera, just so you can see, look at the rule. The and E rule requires one line of justification. What is that line? The line that contained the and I took apart. So in this case, what line did I use? Line 1. Line 3 is justified because line 1 is true, and I use the AND elimination rule. Done. So now I have lines 1 through 3 as logical, justified, and true. And so based on lines 1 through 3, the author says that C is true. Now notice what happens. The only place I see C above is right there in line 2. And what do I know? I now know the left side of the conditional is true. So notice how that works. I have a conditional, B conditional C, and I know it's true because it's a premise, and now I know that B is true. Well, what follows? If B is true, C has to be. Otherwise, this conditional would turn out false. Now, we don't have to do that kind of a justification. I'm just showing you why the rule works. We can just rely upon the rules. So what are we going to do? We are going to take apart a conditional. So we are going to be using the conditional elimination rule. And what does it say? It says if I have a conditional and I know the left side is true, then I know the right side is true. So look at your rules for this conditional elimination. Again, I'm going to be corny and put it in front of the camera. This requires 2 lines of justification. It says if I know a conditional is true and I know the left side is true, I know the right side is true. But now notice, what lines am I looking for? In this one, it says 1 and 2, but what are the equivalents in my case? There is the conditional in line 2. And where did I prove the left side true? Line 3. Those are 2 lines of justification, so line 4 is now justified. Now, I know that lines 1 through 4 are logical and true, and so now the author says that C or D is true. Notice, that's my goal. I can't use my goal. I'm trying to get to it. I don't see that sentence anywhere. So I have, notice, created a new OR. So I go and look at that rule. I look at my OR introduction rule. I didn't take apart an OR, I created a new one. So again, using my corny methods, I look at my OR introduction rule. And what does it say? If I know that A is true, then A or anything is true. Well, in this case, I know that C is true, so C or anything, in this case D, is true. So yes, I used my OR introduction rule. How many lines of justification are required? Again, sorry for how corny this is. This rule requires 1 line of justification where I prove that one side was true. So what did I do? I used line 4 where I prove that C is true and simply created my new OR sentence. So this whole proof is now fully justified as a proof. How did you do? All right, so let's look at B, and notice I joined you in the corner like I usually would be, right? There I am, so you should feel totally safe. All right, so let's look at B. Again, our goal is at the top, right? I've underlined it just so you will separate the idea that we can't use our goal. We're trying to derive it from the 2 premises we were given. So those were given to us, and we were able to derive these 5 lines from those 2 premises. Now remember, again, you want to only look at what's above because that's where your justifying lines must come from. So we look at lines 1 and 2, and the author produced line 3 from it. It looks really awkward. Although notice the secret here. The secret is this biconditional. I know this looks weird and complicated, but notice what that biconditional means. If we take apart that biconditional, it gives us exactly this line. If you have your rules out, you should either have them printed or sitting out there on a screen. If we take a biconditional apart, notice what we get. Again, I'm going to be corny. If we take apart a biconditional, oops, sorry, wrong sheet. If we take apart a biconditional, what does it give us? 2 mirror image conditionals connected by an AND. Well, this is exactly the same as the rule sheet, luckily. A biconditional B leads to spelling out its details in line 3. So that's all that was done. All that was done was that biconditional was taken apart. What did we do? We eliminated a biconditional, taking it apart. How many lines of justification are required for that? We look at our rule sheet and it says you just need one line. If you look at it, you just need one line, the line that contains the biconditional you took apart. For us, that is line 1. Good. So now we're looking at line 4. In line 4, the author says that A conditional B is true. Now, did we create a new conditional? No. We simply took apart the and in line 3. Do you see it? The and elimination is a really straightforward rule. If your and is your main connective, you can take either side off as soon as you want. So that is all we did. We used the and elimination rule. And how many lines of justification does it require? Look at your rule sheet. An and elimination requires just one line, the line that contains the and you took apart. For us, that is line 3. We justified that move, so line 4 is now true and justified. Based on lines 1 through 4, we now have this line. Now look at this. I don't see this anywhere. I have a new sentence. So what should I be thinking? We either took apart something. No, we didn't take something apart. That doesn't exist up in the above lines. So we must have created this. Can I create an and? Well, look at your rule sheet. An and introduction rule says that if I know two sentences are true, then I can put them together with a new and. Well, notice what I have. There's my A conditional B in line 4, and there is my C conditional D in line 2. So all I've done is put together lines 2 and 4 with an and introduction. To be sure, we check our rule sheet. The and introduction requires 2 lines of justification, and we know what they are. Lines 2 and line 4. And by the way, I'm not worried what order you write those numbers in. 4, 2 would have been fine. 2 and 4 and introduction. This proof is now justified. All right, look at example C. Look at how scary that looks. If you have a little brother or sister and they ask you how tough college is, just show them this work and they'll never go to college. Look at this gibberish. All right. One thing that does happen is sometimes we get a little overwhelmed by all of the gibberish out in front of us. And so sometimes you want to mentally, if not literally, cover up what you don't need, what you're not looking at. So right now we are trying to get to D, but all we know are premises 1 through 3. So premises 1 through 3 are what we can assume to be true. They are given to us as premises. And in line 4, again, this is an existing proof. We are just trying to justify each line. We know that A is true. Now look at this. I only see A in lines 1 and line 3. So can I get A from line 1? Now notice how we're going to start talking. Do I have a rule that lets me take the left side of a conditional? I don't. I have a conditional elimination rule, but it only lets me take out the right side if I first know that the left side is true. So I don't know that the left side of that line 1 is true, so look at line 3. Do I have a rule that lets me take apart an and? Can I take the right side of an and? Of course. I can take the left side or the right side, so that's what I did. I used my and elimination rule. How many lines are required to justify that move? Just the line that contains the and you took apart. For us, line 3. Good. So now, I'll move my paper. I think I can just take it away now, right? Don't be distracted by the lines below. So now, even covered up. Now I know that based on lines 1 through 4, that B is true. How could we get B? Now notice, I'm looking at all my lines. I only see B in line 1. So I must have gotten it from line 1. Can I? Well, yes, now I can. My conditional elimination rule says that if I know the left side of a conditional is true, then I know that the right side is true. And that's clearly what I've done. Now notice, if you want to, you can even cover up everything but what you need and see the simple proof. Look at lines 1, 4, and 5. It says, if A is true, then B is true, A is in fact true, so we know that B is true. So I used my conditional elimination rule. I look at my rule sheet. It requires 2 lines of justification. The conditional you took apart, line 1, and where you prove the left side, line 4. Are we okay? So now the author looks at this and says, based on lines 1 through 5, C biconditional D is true. Well, I see a biconditional in line 2. Can I take it apart? It's a conditional. I can take the right side of a conditional as long as I prove the left side is true by itself. And there it is. Notice this. So if we could hide our eyes from seeing anything but 2 and 5, we would see, even though it looks a little more complex, the same move we just made earlier. Because the left side B is true, I know the right side is true. And there it is. What did I do? I took apart a conditional again. I need 2 lines of justification. The conditional in line 2, and where I prove the left side of the conditional in line 5. So line 6 is now justified. Line 7, C is true. Can I get C from line 6? No, it's in the middle of a biconditional. That would take a lot of steps to unpack that thing. But look at line 3. Ands are really friendly. I can take apart either side of the and I want. So I'm going to simply use my and elimination rule. How many lines are required to justify an and elimination? Just the one line, the line that contains the and you took apart. That is simply line 3. Good. In line 8, I have a very complicated sentence. I look at this. Do I have C conditional D somewhere? No, I don't have D conditional C somewhere. So it's not like I took those and made a new and. I didn't do that because I don't have that content anywhere. But look at line 6. Line 6 is a biconditional, and if I look at this carefully, these are simply 2 mirror image conditionals connected by an and. What did I do? I simply took apart that biconditional. A double arrow E, biconditional elimination. How many lines are required to justify that? Just the line that contains the biconditional we took apart, line 6. Whew. If you are following, you are a genius. You're doing good. Now in line 9, we have C conditional D. Did I create a conditional? I don't think so. I simply took sentences apart. What did I do? Look at this sentence right here. It has a conditional. Here's the conditional I have, and it's one side of an and. Can I take apart ands? Yes. If your and is your main connective of your sentence, you can take either side apart that you want. So I simply took the left side. I did an and elimination. How many lines are required to justify it? We look at our rule sheet, just one, and that is the and we took apart in line 8. So I've got it. I took the left side off of the and in line 8. It is justified. And now the author knows that D is true. Where did we get D? Well, I can look and I see D all over the place, but notice right here. If you look at line 9, again, sometimes the trick is just not seeing too much, but focusing your attention in certain places. If I look at line 9 and line 7, do you see it? Line 9 says, if C is true, then D is true, and C is true. So what have I done? I have simply taken apart the conditional by taking the right side because I already proved the left side is true. So this is, once again, a conditional elimination. According to the rules, I need 2 lines to justify it. The line that contains the conditional I took apart, and where I prove the left side is true. Again, I wouldn't mind if you wrote that in the different order, but I need those 2 lines of justification. Line 10 is now justified and true. That is my goal. I finished my proof. All right, example D. Oh, look at this huge mess. This thing is scary, but it's not. We simply keep looking above the line we're working on and see how to justify each move. So lines 1 through 3 are our premises, so we're looking at line 4 because it was derived from 1 through 3. So line 4 says B conditional C. I look for it. I see it right there. B conditional C is in line 1, and it's on one side of an and. Well, that one's easy. I think you could do this ahead of me. Again, if you can get ahead of me, that would be great. What did we do? We used an and elimination rule, requires just one line of justification, the line that contains the and we took apart. So line 4 is now justified. Line 5, A conditional B is true. What is that? Look at it. That is simply the other side of the and in line 1. So, same justification. We just took the left side this time. Now a little trickier. A is true. Again, we can ignore everything below. We can't rely on it. That's not proven yet. A is true. Can we get it from line 5? No, we can't take the left side of a conditional ever. Look at line 3. Do you see it? I hope you saw it ahead of me. Then you are brilliant. I can take apart the and in line 3. That is simply my and elimination rule. Again, I just keep taking apart these ands. I took the left side of line 3. Now, based on those lines, B is true. Now I look all over, I see a bunch of B's. Where could I have taken it? Well, this one is really an and sentence, so I've already taken that apart. But look at line 5. Line 5, according to my rule, I can take apart line 5 as long as I know the left side is true, and I do know the left side is true. So what is this? I took apart the conditional in line 5 because I proved the left side in line 6. Good? You're doing good. Now I have B or D. Now I look and always look for my content in my lines above because they are justified. I can use them. And I see it here in line 2. But it's the left side of a conditional. I can't take the left side of a conditional. So where did I get this or? Well, now I should think. I can't take it out of line 2. So it must have been created. Can I create a new or? Yes. So I know I'm going to need my or introduction rule. Does that allow me to create an or? Yes, as long as I know that one side of it is true, and I do. So yes, this is an or introduction rule. It requires one line of justification according to your rule sheet, the line where I proved one side is true. I proved the left side B is true in line 7, so that is true. Good. Now I know that line 9 can be derived. What did I do? Let's look for it. I see it here. It's the right side of a conditional. I can take the right side of a conditional as long as I know the left side is true. Do I know the left side is true? Look at line 8. Do you see it? So again, a lot of times this is simply focusing. If I can get rid of all those lines and just look at 2 and 8, I see a pretty simple proof. Line 2 says, if B or D is true, and it is, then C conditional B is true. What did we do? We took apart the conditional elimination. We took apart the conditional in 2 because we proved the left side in line 8. That line is now justified. Now we have all of this. We are looking for it. I see C conditional B here. I see B conditional C there. Notice, what did we do? We created a new and. Because I have both of these elements true by themselves, 4 and 9, I can simply create the new and by putting the sentences in 4 and 9 together. Do you see it? Sorry for the hideous 4. And then finally, we know that B biconditional C is true. Where do we get that? I don't see a biconditional anywhere in my lines. So we created a new biconditional. Do you see line 10? Are you starting to see this stuff? This is 2 mirror image conditionals with an and between. What does this mean? Both of these conditionals are true, and that is what I need. If you look at your biconditional introduction rule, it says, if you have 2 mirror image conditionals connected by an and, you can create the new biconditional. It requires just one line of justification, where the elements all existed in one line. I created my new biconditional. That is my goal, so I'm done. Now you're ready to create your own proofs from scratch. All right, so in example E, we have our goal. Now I am going to show you the best technique I use for doing these. For this one, it's a very straightforward proof, but I'm going to show you the strategy you will use no matter how difficult or easy these are. Here's what we do. The first thing we do is, and I'm going to switch to red because these are going to be, I'm going to make notes in red. The first thing we do is make sure that we are seeing our goal appropriately. I always draw a box around it just so that mentally I know I can't stop working on my proof until I arrive at that goal by itself. And then I ask this question. You will keep doing this every time. You ask the question, do I see my goal in my premises? If you do, you know you will simply be taking it apart, dissecting your premises to get to it. If you don't, you know you're going to need to create it. So you'll be using fundamentally introduction rules. So we ask, do we see our goal in our premises? And we note it. Yes, I see it right here. If I could isolate A in premise 1, I win. I get my goal. And so now my strategy is to cheat at the maze. What does that mean? I go backwards from the finish line to the start. So I make notes from my goal back to my premises and make myself little notes. I will do this over the side if it gets over to the side if this gets complicated. But in a case like this, I will simply use underlining. So I am trying to get A out of line 1. Line 1 is a conditional. Can I take the right side of a conditional? Yes, but I need to prove the left side first. So this will be my subgoal. I'm going to underline my subgoal. If I get B, then I can get A. So those are my steps. So now I am just looking for my subgoal B, and I ask the same thing. Do I see my subgoal in my premises? Well, I do. I see it in line 2 also. I can't take the left side of a conditional, but can I take apart a double negation? Yes, right? I am doing what? I am taking apart a double negation. So I look at my rules. I look at my negation elimination rule. It tells me what? It tells me if I have a double negated sentence, I can simply take off the double negation. So I now see how I will get B. So in line 3, I know based on line 2 that B is true. Do you see it? If you isolated simply line 2 by itself, you would see that that's simple. I can take apart a double negation. What did I do? I used the negation elimination rule. And what line? How many lines are required to use that rule? I look at my rule sheet. I look at my negation elimination, and it says I need just 1 line. Where is the double negation I took apart? Line 2. Now notice, if I want to be careful in doing all my notations, I could even make a move like this. Okay, I've got my subgoal. That is done. So now what am I after? I am after A. I drove B. I was able to derive B in order to what? To get A out of line 1. So what does this mean? Line 1 says if B is true, then A is true. Line 3 says B is true. So in line 4, I know that A is true. That is my goal. I just need to justify it. What did I do? I took apart the conditional. How many lines of justification are required? Again, we could look at our rule sheet. We look. Conditional elimination requires 2 lines to justify it. It requires the conditional you took apart and where you prove the left side. So I took apart the conditional in line 1 and I proved the left side in line 3. You have now done your first proof. Good. Example F. Remember, we are going to follow my corny strategy. The first thing we do is make some notes. I can't forget that I can't stop until I have my goal, until I have proven and justified that goal. And then I ask, Do I see my goal of my premises? We're going to label our premises. Do you see it? There it is. There is my goal. If I could just unearth that from premise 1, I win. Well, let's look step by step. So, what sentence is C in? It is in a very complicated sentence, but just focus on this. If I could get C and D by itself, could I take C out? Yes, I can. I have that and elimination rule that lets me take apart ands, so there is my subgoal. I am trying to get C and D by itself. So a single underline represents my subgoal. But I can't just take that out unless I do what? Unless I prove the left side first. So now I have my subgoal. I know the conditional is true because it's given to me as a premise, but I can't take the right side until I've proven the left side. So now I have a sub-goal. So now I am simply looking for my sub-goal, and I ask again, do I see my sub-goal in my premises? Let's see. I don't see A and B by itself anywhere, but do you see how I can create it? Yes. If I get A and I get B, I can simply create the new and. I can even make a little note to myself. I can even say, I am going to need the and introduction rule in order to create a new and. And now notice, if you can see that ahead of time, I work backwards from my goal all the way to my premises, then it is simply following my checklist. So what should I get first? Well, let's get A. Can I right now take A out of line 3? Of course I can, because that and is the main connective, so I can simply take it apart. What did I do? I used an and elimination rule to take A out of line 3. How many lines of justification are required? I look at my rule sheet, just one line where the and exists that I took apart. So what does that mean? I have one of my sub goals done. Sorry. Now what am I after? Well, now I am after B. Can I get B now? Yes. In line 2, the and is the main connective, so I can simply take B as soon as I want to. What did I do? I used and elimination again. I took apart the and in line 2. Is that enough lines of justification? Yes. That rule requires one line, the line that contains the and you took apart. So now I have another one of my sub goals. So what am I after now? Now notice, I'm staying focused. I want the sentence A and B. Do you see, can I get it? Yes. If A is true and B is true, I can create a new and. So I will simply create my new and out of lines 4 and 5. What did I do? I used my and introduction rule. If I am being really careful, I get out my rule sheet to make sure I did it correctly. If I look at my and introduction rule, I need 2 lines of justification where I found my 2 sentences to put together. Lines 4, line 5, and introduction. That line is now justified. What does that mean? That means I got my sub goal out of the way. So that's done. Why did I get A and B? Notice, I can do this one step at a time. I got A and B in order to get C and D. Can I get it now? Yes. Line 1 says if A and B is true, then C and D is true. Well, A and B is true, so C and D is true. I don't need the parentheses anymore. I could leave them, but I don't need them. And now notice, I have a little small proof. If you focus on just lines 1 and 6, it's pretty clear what I've just done. I've done my favorite conditional elimination rule. I need 2 lines of justification according to my rule sheet. The line that contains the conditional, the line that contains the conditional, and the line that proves the left side is true. That is now justified. What did I do? Again, I now finished my sub goal. Do you see it? I think that if you could do this underlining on your own, you could easily follow the steps. It's just seeing and making good notes. I have C and D. What am I after C? Can I simply take C out? Yes, I can. I can take C out. I used my AND elimination rule. I took elements out of an AND. I didn't create an AND. I eliminated one. I need one line of justification, the line that contains the AND I took apart. Hi. Okay, are you hanging in there? I am sorry for how weird this is, just having a video of a piece of paper and a handwriting, but I do think this is the only clear way to do this, not assuming that you have all sorts of tech. I think this is going to be okay. Please hang in there. Remember to use the K button to keep pausing your YouTube video as you look at things. Make sure you're working along with me. Do your best, right? Okay, let's get back to it, and my hideous face will now disappear again. So now it's getting a little bit trickier. Look at example G on the exercises. What do we have? We have our goal. What do? We make sure that we are focused on the goal. You have no idea how often I see students stop at their sub-goal. They get so excited they got to a sub-goal, they forget to do the last step. I should also say this, so quick aside. Please note that you can do more steps than I have put out in the exercises. What I have labeled out in the exercises, for example, this one is 10 lines. You could use extra lines if you do some extraneous steps you don't need to, but it can't be done in fewer lines. So if you see that as you're practicing these, you say, oh, well, I did this one in 8 lines. Please know that means you took an illegal shortcut somewhere. But notice, you could do extra lines as long as they're legal. Maybe you took something out of an AND that you actually didn't need. That would be fine. For instance, if we look at our example F, notice, let me look at it again. I never needed E, but if you just took it out because you could, well, that would add an extra line to your proof. You actually never needed E anywhere. But notice, if you did that, as long as it's legal, it's okay to have extra lines. But be careful to only make legal moves. All right. So we label our whole goal, and then we ask the same question we always ask. Do I see my goal in my premises? Well, of course I don't. I don't see anything like it. I don't see A and B. I don't even see any ORs. So here's where we have a case where we know we're going to need to create our goal, not just dissect our premises. What is the main connective of our goal? It's an OR. Do I see an OR anywhere? No. So here's where I start doing more elaborate note-taking. I know that my sub-goal is going to be creating a new OR. So I go and look at that rule, and it will tell me what to do. If I look at the OR introduction rule, let me grab it. The OR introduction rule, sorry, I hope this focus is quick. All right, oh, sorry, wrong sheet. If I look at the OR introduction rule, I am simply going to follow what it says. It says what? When you are trying to create a new OR, you need to prove that one side of your new OR is true, and then you can just create the other side out of thin air. So notice, my goal is A and B or C. So I am simply going to look to prove either A and B or prove C, and then create the other side of my new OR. Do I see C anywhere? No, I can't just create a letter out of thin air. So I see what my sub-goal is. My sub-goal is going to be to find the sentence A and B. Now, do you see what I will do? If I can get A and B, then I can simply create my new OR and create C out of thin air. So now I have my sub-goal. Do I see my sub-goal in my premises? Not directly. So what do I know? My sub-goal is going to be to create that new AND. My sub-goal is A and B, and I'm going to need to create it. How do I create A and B? Well, I'm going to need to get A and get B, and then put them together. Do you see it? Please use these kinds of strategies so you only have to do one thing at a time. All right, so let's try it. The first thing I'm going to try to do is get A. Let's work on that first. Do I see A anywhere in my premises? Yes, I see it. There it is. I see A right here. Now, I also see it here, but that's more complex. It's going to be easier to take it out of line 1. Do you see it? Because line 1 is an and. So, what will I do first? I will first take the right side off of line 1. Now notice, I can't just take A straight away. I have to take apart the and get negative A first. Do you see why? Yes, I can take apart the and, but the right side is a double negated A, but I can do that easily. I used an and elimination rule that requires one line of justification. If I look at my rule sheet, simply the line that contains the and you took apart. Now, do I want not A? No, I want A. So what do? Simply take off the double negation because I have a rule that lets me do that. Can I take apart double negations? Immediately I can, as long as it is a sentence by itself. A is true. What did I do? I used the negation elimination rule. How many lines of justification does that require? A negation elimination rule requires just one line, the line that contains the double negation you took apart. For us, that's line 3. Good. What do I have? I look at my notes. I have A. Good. Now what am I after? B. Where can I get B? Ooh, B is a lot more complicated. Where do I see it? There it is. Now maybe I want to make more notes in this case. I know that if I get not B, I can get B. That's easy. But notice, I first have to isolate this whole sentence and get A by itself. Do you see this? Now, what's fortunate here? The fortunate thing is I already have A, so what do I have to do? Notice, to get any of this content, it's the right side of a conditional. In order to take apart the right side of a conditional, what do I have to do? Prove the left side. Notice what a mess this is. But if I follow my notes, I should be okay. So what do I need to do? In order to get B, I need to get not B. In order to get not B, I have to get this conditional and get A. And in order to get this conditional, I first have to get D. Whew, that's going to be a lot of work. That's why there's so many lines. Where can I get D? That is my sub goal. I can get D, can't get it from line 2, but look at line 1. Can I take D out of line 1 immediately? Yes, I can. The main connective is an and, so I can just take off the left side. That is simply an and elimination rule, taking apart the and in line 1. That rule requires just one line to justify it. So what do I have? I have D. Good. Why did I get D? I got D in order to get this whole conditional. So if D is true, and it is, then the right side of the conditional in 2 is true. So I can now write that conditional. Notice I didn't need the parentheses anymore, so I simply wrote it without the parentheses. What did I do? I took apart a conditional. The conditional was in line 2 because I proved the left side of it in 5. Justified. What do I have now? I have my sub goal. Sorry. Now what do I need? Well, if A is true, and it is, I can get the double negated B. Do you see it? This line 6 says if A is true, then not B is true. A is true in line 4, so I know the right side of line 6 is true. What did I do? I took apart another conditional. I took apart my conditional in 6 because I proved the left side in 4. Good? So now I am on my way to getting my sub goal. What is my sub goal? My sub goal is B. Do I have it now? Yes, I do. I can simply right away take off the double negation in line 7 because I have that negation elimination rule. Simply uses line 7. I double check. It requires just one line of justification. I've got it. What does that mean? I have got my sub goal done here. Good. I've got B. Now, why did I do that? I made all these nodes. I got these sub-sub goals in order to get my sub-goal A and B. Can I now use my AND introduction and create my sub-goal? Yes, I can. I have A in line 4. I have B in line 8. I can simply put those together because they are both true by themselves. I used an AND introduction rule. That rule requires 2 lines of justification. Check your rule sheet to be sure. Do you see it? And introduction requires 2 lines of justification where you took your 2 sentences. What do I have? Line 4 and line 8. I created a new AND. Yes, I look at my notes. I have my A and B sentence, so now I'm ready to use my final step. Because I got A and B, I can now create my new OR. If A and B is true, then A and B is true, and I can add anything to this OR. My goal is C, so I did it. Now I need to justify this. What did I do? I used an OR introduction. Because I knew the left side of the OR is true, I was able to create a new OR. How many lines of justification are needed? Simply 1 line, the line that contains one side of my new OR being true by itself. Line 9, I finished this very tricky proof G. All right, now I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit. You are going to constantly hit that K button and pause. And what I would like you to do is, like I said before, try to stay ahead of me. When I talk something through and I'm on the next line, pause the video and see if you can write the justifications and make the moves yourself, and then unpause and check your work, right? That would be great. Now, of course, if you are not at that level of confidence, then stay with me, but keep pausing as you try to challenge yourself to stay up with me. So again, I'm going to go quicker, but you're going to pause constantly. I'm just trying to make it so this video doesn't look like it's 2 hours long. Please forgive me. I miss you. Going back to my paper now. Example H is one that if you use my little strategy, I think you can do this fine on your own. It will be a lot of underlining, but look how it works. So we start by making sure we're focused on our goal. Do we see our goal in our premises? There it is. Now, it will simply be extracting that out of premise 1 by going step by step. Now notice, I know, thinking back, I'm going a little quicker now, if I could isolate this sentence, then I could get to D if I first get C. Do you see it? If I could isolate this and get C, I could get D. But notice, in order to isolate this, what do I have to get first? I first have to isolate all of this conditional and get B. If I get this conditional by itself and B by itself, then I can get C conditional D, then I can get C, then I can get D. I think you could follow that visually, even though it sounded like a lot of work. Now, I have a sub goal of trying to get this whole right side isolated. But that should be easy as long as I do what? First get my sub goal of A. I have made all my notes. Now I can try to work this out. So if I'm seeing myself as working left to right, getting all these sub-goals, then I can work one thing at a time. Do you see where I can get A? I can take it out of line 1, but it's ready to take out of line 2. I'll go a little quicker. A is true because I use line 2 and an AND elimination rule. Requires 1 line of justification. I'll go a little quicker. So I was able to get my first sub goal. Now I'll get my second sub goal, and that is to get B by itself. Do you see it? Look at line 3. I can take B out of line 3 right away, simply taking off those negations. I used line 3 and the negation elimination rule. Again, keep pausing if you want to review what I'm doing. So I got my sub goal. Now, because I got A, I can get this whole right side isolated. Do you see it? Now, of course, I could have worked in the opposite order. I could have gotten everything in parentheses first, but I'm working in this order. Notice I no longer need the parentheses, so I will simply take them off. Now I have that. Do you see it? Because A is true, I was able to take the right side of the conditional in 1. I took the conditional in 1 because I proved the left side of it in 5. Oops, sorry, in 4, based on conditional elimination rule. Now what do I need? Now, because I know B is true right here in line 5, and I have this conditional by itself in 6, I can now get the right side of the conditional. Do you see it? I am going to use another conditional elimination rule and take the right side off of the conditional in 6. I don't need those parentheses anymore, so I will write C conditional D by itself. How did I justify that? I used the conditional in 6, and I took off the right side because I proved the left side in line 5. Good. So now I've got my sub goal almost there. What do I need now? I need to get C so that I can get to D. Do you see where I can get C? Look at line 2. There it's sitting. I have it. Line C is true because in line 2, I took apart the and in line 2. Got it? Now, look at 7 and 8. If I isolate that, that's a pretty simple proof. Line 7 says if C is true, then D is true. Line 8 says C is true. So now I have my goal. D is true. I just have to justify it. What did I do? I took apart the conditional in 7 because I proved the left side true in 8, and I win. That is my goal, proven from my premises. I am cheating. I am going backwards through my maze. And so I make sure to have my goal clearly labeled. Then I ask, do I see my goal in my premises? No, I don't. What does that tell me? It tells me I'm going to need to create it. What am I going to need to create? An and. So I look at my and introduction rule. And what does that rule tell me? It tells me in order to use this rule, right, that will be my final step, I need to get A, get E, and then put them together. So now I have my sub-goals noted. So let's go in order. Let's first try to get A. Do I see my sub-goal in my premises? Yes, I do. There it is. I see A. I know that I can get A if I first get D, then I can take line 3 apart. Do you see where I can get D? Look at it. It's one side of the main connective, and I can take that right away. So let's work on that first. So in line 4, D is true. I did not get it from line 3. I took apart line 1. I used an and elimination by taking apart line 1. I double check. Yes, it only requires one line of justification to take apart an and. So I have D. Why did I get D? Well, look right there. I got D in order to isolate A. A is now true. Why? Because I took apart the conditional in line 3 by first proving the left side in line 4. Got it. What did I do? I have my first sub-goal. My second sub-goal is now to get E. Do I see E in my premises? There it is. Very same sort of steps. Look at this. I can get E, if I first get not B. So now I'm looking for not B. Do you see it? There it is. Not B is right there in premise 1. There is only one problem. I have to first take apart the left side. Do you see it? So I will take one additional step. I need to take apart the left side of this and. Notice, I can't skip the step. I have to take apart main connectives only. So I will take the left side from line 1. What do? I don't need those parentheses anymore. So I write negative B and C. I simply took apart line 1 with an and elimination rule. Got it. What was I after? Negative B. Do you see it? I can take it from line 2. I can take it from line 6. My sub goal was to get negative B. I now have it by itself because I can take apart line 6. I took apart line 6 using an and elimination again. Good. Because I have negative b, that was my sub-goal. I've got it. Because I've got negative b, what can I get? E. That was my sub-goal. Look at line 2. It says, if negative b is true, E is true, so E is now true by itself. What did I do? I took apart a conditional. Where was the conditional? Line 2. Where did I prove the left side? Line 7. So what have I done? I now have my sub-goal, E. A is true, line 5. E is true, line 8. What do I do now? Simply put them together. I now have the sentence A and E. I created a new and introduction by combining line 5 to line 8. That is my final goal. I'm done. Example J is short, but it is tricky, right? So don't be thrown off by long proofs, right? Just look at your skills. So I label my goal. There it is. I always ask, do I see my goal in my premises? And I do. There it is. If I isolate H and K, can I take K out? Of course I can. That's an easy one. What do I need to do, though, so that I can get H and K by itself? I first need to prove the left side, A or L. There I have my sub-goals and goals. So I am simply trying to get A or L. Do I see A or L in my premises? I don't. I don't see that sentence. So what does that tell me? I'm going to need to create it. So I'm going to make a little note. I am going to look at my OR introduction rule. And what does it tell me? It tells me if I know one side of my OR is true, I can create the new OR. So do you see L anywhere? I don't, but I see A right there, ready to take. So in order to prove A or L, I will simply isolate A from line 2. There it is. A is true. Why is it true? Because I took apart an and in line 2. That requires just one line of justification. I'm golden. I have A. If I have A, I can create the new OR. Remember, that's the voodoo rule. If you know one side is true, you can create the OR as long as that OR is the main connective. I'm creating A or L. Where did I get it? I didn't get it from line 1. That's illegal. I created it from line 3. I used an OR introduction, one line of justification where I know one side is true. That was the A in line 3. I have A or L, so now I can get the right side of that conditional, H and K. Do you see it? In line 1, it says if A or L is true, and it is, then H and K is true. That is my very popular conditional elimination rule. I use the conditional in 1 by proving the left side in 5. See it? And now you can see it easy. I have H and K. I will simply take K out. That is easy. That is my and elimination rule. Requires one line of justification. I took apart line 5, and I'm done. All right. Example K. I make sure to focus on my whole goal. I don't stop until I have it. And then I ask, do I see my goal in my premises? I don't. So what does that mean? I know I'm going to need to create a new and. So now I have my subgoals. I look at the rule. It says, if you can isolate both sides of the new and you're trying to create, you can create your new and. So there are my subgoals, and I will simply put them together to create the new and. So let's start with C. Ooh, that's going to be a little weird. Good? So here is my subgoal. I know that if I could isolate the not C, I could take C out. And I know that I can get not C if I first prove the left side of this conditional. So now here is my sub goal. I want A or B. Do I see that anywhere? No, but notice, I know I can create it if I get one side of my OR, and I've already got it right there. So I see my map. What am I going to do first? I'm going to get my sub goal by creating the new OR by using line 1. In line 4, A or B is true because B is true. Do you see it? I used line 1 and the OR introduction rule. So I have my sub goal. If A or B is true, and it is, then the right side of this conditional is true. So not C is true. Do you see it? Not C is true. So how did I get that? From the conditional in 3 by proving the left side in 4 using my ever popular conditional elimination. I have that. So now can I get C? Super easy. C is true because I can take off the double negation. That is simply a negation elimination rule using line 5. Double check. Yes, just one line of justification. So I have my sub goal, C. Do I have my other sub goal? It's already there. Negative D is ready for me. So what do I need to do? Simply put lines 2 and 5 through 2 and 6 together. I have C from line 6 and negative D from line 2. That is my full goal. What did I do? I used 2 and 6 and the AND introduction rule. And I win. That is my goal. It's justified. That is how many lines are required to justify it. I'm good. Last one, example L. I am so proud of finding this example. Actually, I created it. I don't think I found this one. I am so proud of myself. Good job, Jeff. Sorry. This thing is so fascinating because it can be done in the same number of lines in 2 different ways. So we will do 2 separate strategies to solve this thing. Okay, so let's look at it. So here is our goal. We don't want to forget it, so we label the whole thing as usual. Good. And so we are looking to see, is our goal in our premises? Well, no, that whole thing isn't in our premises. And so we know what? We will need to create it. Well, what is the main connective? It is an OR. I don't even see an OR anywhere, let alone any of the content I need for that OR. So I'm going to need to use an OR introduction rule. How does that rule work? If I can prove that one side of my new OR is true, I can create the new OR. So I can create either side, and here's where the fun little thing begins. Because this proof is set up in a way where I could create either side from these premises. So let's do the first proof by proving the left side. So my sub-goal, if I'm looking over here, my sub-goal is going to be to prove that X or Y is true. So now I think of this as a sub-goal. Do I see my sub-goal in my premises? No. So what do I know I will need to do? I will need to create another OR introduction rule as my sub-goal. I will need to create the left side X or Y. How do I create it? By getting X or Y and creating the new OR. So what should I use? Let's see, X. X looks pretty friendly to get. Look at it, sitting right there. So my sub goal will be to get X and then create the X or Y and then create my goal. All right, so let's do it. So here is the X that I'm going to try to isolate. I can isolate it if I first isolate the double negation, and I can isolate that if I first get Z. Now, let's follow that through. Do you see where I can get Z by itself? Of course. Look at line 1. And is the main connective, so I can easily take the left side out. I got Z from line 1 by eliminating or taking apart that and. I have Z. Well, according to line 2, if I have Z, I now have negative X. That is true. Why? Because I took apart the conditional in 2 because I proved the left side in 4. That is my conditional elimination rule. So now I have not X. What am I after? X. Do you see that it's ready to go in line 5? I simply took off those negations that I found in line 5. So now X is true. That was my sub goal. Why did I get X? In order to get X or Y, one side of my OR is true, so I can simply create the new OR. There it is. What did I do? I used line X's truth to create the new OR in line 7. If X or Y is true, then I can simply create the new OR that I need, add parentheses. X or Y is true, so X or Y or anything is true, and I want it to be that biconditional there. Sorry, that's ugly. What is that? Simply line 7 using OR introduction. Do you get it? Now notice, I can easily produce this proof by producing the right side of my disjunction, my OR, and my goal. So let me show you that. Here it is. Strategy number 2. I have my whole goal, and so I label it so I don't forget that this is what I need. I need all of it. And I don't see my goal in my premises, so I'm going to need to create the new OR. So my sub-goal will be the OR introduction. And this time I'm going to create the right side of my OR. So my sub-goal is going to be to produce this sentence. Good? How do I produce a biconditional? Well, of course, first I ask, do I see my sub-goal in my premises? I don't. So what does that tell me? It tells me that I'm going to need to create or introduce a biconditional. How do you introduce a biconditional? By creating two mirror image conditionals connected by an AND. So my sub goals are to get XY and to get YX, and then put them together with a new AND. Do you see it? So this is what I am trying to do now. I am trying to isolate these two conditionals, put them together with an AND to create my biconditional. You should be so proud of yourself if you're following this. So what do I need to do? I need to get these conditionals. Let's get this one first. Do you see it? It's staring at me in line 3. Line 3 is an AND. I can take apart ANDs right away. As long as the AND's the main connective, I can simply take that off. That is line 3 and elimination. Got this. Check. Now I need this one, X conditional Y. Look at line 1. It is simply an AND sentence. I don't need those parentheses anymore. I've simply taken the right side of line 1. Super easy. Another AND elimination. So now what do I do? Well, I need to create the new AND by simply putting these two together. I've got it. I will create it as X conditional Y and Y conditional X. Do you see what I've done? I have simply taken lines 4 and 5 and created a new AND. So I have all the components I need to create what? A biconditional. Look at it. These are two mirror image conditionals connected by an and that is how you create the biconditional. That is simply line 6, a biconditional introduction. Look up the rule, requires just one line of justification. So I have my biconditional, so I know that one side of the OR I'm trying to create is true, so I can simply create the other side out of thin air. There it is. I use parentheses. There is my goal sentence. I created that from line 7, simply using the OR introduction as my final step. Yes, you lived. I am so proud of you. I hope that wasn't terrible. Thanks.